Hello there. This is Paul Glumaz once again, and today is the 11th of December, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. And as you may know, if you've been watching these, I've been an activist in the LaRouche political movement for almost 45 years now, coming up on 45 years. Okay. So today, we have some very striking developments, and that portend a real volatile political period, and internationally as well as in the United States. The European system of the European Union is currently disintegrating. There's a crisis in France, there's a crisis in Germany, there's a crisis in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom. These crises are being brought about by many decades of people suffering increasing austere conditions. And as their children become adults, there is no future for them. And there is a tremendous malaise in the population of Europe. In the United Kingdom, this was expressed several years ago in voting to leave the European Union and leave the strictures of the European bureaucracy and the European rules over the United Kingdom. And these three countries are in a crisis right now. United Kingdom, France, and Germany. Of the big four in Europe, if you include Italy, Italy is the country which is not at this time in a crisis, because it has promised the people that they weren't going to continue the policies that have been bringing their life, ruining their future. Now, the way further austerity is being implemented in Europe, except in Italy, where they have gone against it, is being implemented in Europe is through, under the guise of the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, and the need to so-called decarbonize, and all of that. And they're also saying that it's global warming which is causing the refugee problem. And there's a compact that's being signed right now in Morocco on countries coming together to sign an orderly acceptance of refugees, an orderly process. But it's all being blamed on climate change. Not the wars that the system has generated in these areas, which are causing the collapse, and the lack of development is causing the migration, not climate change. So, so when they decided to impose draconian taxes on diesel fuel in France and in Germany, well, in France it sparked a revolt, which began a few weeks ago with people wearing yellow vests. And the reason they wear yellow vests is that it's like a signal that not everything is right. So it's kind of like you put the yellow vest on when your car breaks down on the highway. You put your yellow vest on. It's like a security thing. It's like, and so this yellow vest movement has grown it's like wildfire. And there's been riots, there's been demonstrations, and it's growing. And most of the people of France support this, the demands of this, the yellow vests. Those demands include rescinding this tax, increasing dramatically the minimum wage, because it's been very stagnant, and people have lost a lot of their living standard. Also ending the privatization of healthcare that's been going on. The policies that France is being implementing under Macron are literally deindustrialization policies. You know, they want to get rid of nuclear power. France has 70% nuclear power. They want to go down to 50 and then 30. And they want to get rid of all carbon fuels, only have renewable. You can't support the population that way. So this is a revolt. And last night, Macron was forced to completely backtrack and cave in. And in doing so, he has to come up with a budget which is in violation of the agreement, Maastricht Treaty, about how much of a deficit France is allowed. And so this is putting France in conflict with the European bureaucracy. And the fact that Macron, who was putting himself forward, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, was putting himself forward as the leader of the enforcement of the bankers' dictates in Europe, had to back down completely, is only going to fuel more resistance, not greater resistance, not pacify people, because there's so much that needs to be changed, and there's so many injustices now in the economy that just backing down is not enough. There has to be a fundamental change in policy. That fundamental change in policy is being reflected now in Italy, where the Italian government is openly working with China, openly working to bring Italy in the Belt and Road, openly working to expand the Italian economy into the development of Africa. So this is huge. France is disintegrating, or at least the European Union is disintegrating. France may not be disintegrating, but the European system that was put the European nations in a globalist straitjacket is now disintegrating. And then we go to Great Britain, United Kingdom, and Theresa May canceled the vote because there was no way it would pass. And in return, the European Union, Juncker, and the European Union gave the banks, the London banks, saying that they could still operate as they were, despite the fact that this thing isn't been voted on, and it may not be voted on. And the issue in the Brexit is that the City of London will, in a full Brexit, will not be able to function as the center for European banking. And there are $50 trillion worth of derivatives that have to be unwound, and that would probably trigger a global financial collapse. So in the Brexit issue, there's also embedded a financial crisis. Now, speaking of financial crisis, you have two major entities on the planet, financial and one industrial, which are technically absolutely bankrupt. One is Deutsche Bank, and the other is General Motors. They are technically bankrupt.
General Electric.
General Electric, sorry, not General Motors, General Electric. They're technically bankrupt. So, and General Motors, by the way, as well. And so we're looking at an ongoing financial collapse. So now we come to Donald Trump. Donald Trump tweeted in support of the Yellow Vests demonstrations in France, saying that you can't impose this austerity on the basis of climate change, which he believes is a lot of bunk. Anyhow, but it's the methodology. And they're even going so far as to say that climate change will be the cause of the financial collapse. Everything is being caused by climate change, just like, everything going on in the United States is being caused by Putin and Russians' intervention politically is being caused by that. It's the same kind of not being honest about anything, not even remotely honest about what's causing anything. So in that context, you had the Group of 20 meeting in Argentina, and Donald Trump and Xi Jinping have begun through their respective teams, a very serious negotiation for resolving the trade issue. And we don't know all the details, but there's this, we're being told that they're included in this are concepts such as massive investment by China in the U.S. economy as a way of offsetting the trade. All the stuff's being discussed. But something happened on the day at the time that Donald Trump was having dinner, was having that meeting with Xi Jinping. Canadian authorities, along with the FBI present, arrested the chief financial officer of Huawei, which is a leading telephone manufacturer, is moving very fast to become the supersede Apple and everybody else in terms of technology, telecom. She's also the daughter of the founder of the company. It's not clear how this all happened. Well, it is clear. And it turns out that Donald Trump did not know that this was happening as he was meeting with Xi Jinping. And that it was run through the FBI, through British intelligence, it's run from British intelligence through the FBI, through the Canadian, and they arrested her, put her in handcuffs, treated her very roughly. She has diabetes and a lot of other problems, and this is a very serious situation, and they're doing it completely illegally. The allegation is that she's involved with a company that was involved in transporting American parts to Iran. Okay. And on the basis of some remote connection to this company, they issued indictments of her. The Justice Department issued indictments of her, and then they had her arrested in Vancouver for extradition. Okay. Now there are reports that she was also on her way to meeting Professor Zhang, who's one of the pioneers of the quantum communications technologies. And on the same day she was arrested, he allegedly committed suicide by jumping out of a window. And a lot of the technology he was developing was working with the Chinese government and with Huawei. So all of this is very, and then at the same time, Rubio and a whole bunch of other congressmen are saying that all of the telephones made by Huawei have embedded the capacity for spying by the Chinese. Now, all the telephones that are made by American producers in China have that tech. Microsoft and have that for the NSA. But the real reason may be that these telephones can't be hacked, can't be be used to spy on Americans. If you're using one of their telephones, they can't spy on you, and that may be the real reason. So there's an attempt to shut down the ability for China to market these things in Europe and the United States based on these allegations. But more importantly, it's creating a climate of fear for businessmen, because if they can do this to any businessman, any business person from China, on whatever pretext, then will China reciprocate and do it to other businesses? So it's an attack on trade itself. So this is extremely significant. None of these sanctions are under United Nations rule. The procedures for extraditions are not being followed. They're offering to give her bail at something like $7.5 million. This is causing an uproar in the Chinese community, globally, that this has happened. And Trump didn't know about it. but Bolton did. And this was run through the State Department, through British intelligence, through the very people who are involved in trying to remove Trump. This is what's interesting. Now, in the process of doing this, there is now being revealed that this whole collusion that's going on between British intelligence, Canadian law enforcement, U.S. law enforcement, and so forth, is really being exposed by all of this. And this is happening at the same time that there's a massive exposure now emerging around something called the Integrity Initiative, which is a United Kingdom government-funded program through the Foreign Ministry into the embassies, running clusters of propaganda and peddling influence to plant rumors and disrupt people's relationships with Russia. In other words, targeting individuals who want to do business with Russia, slandering people that are not anti-Russian. So everywhere in the world, they have these clusters that are connected to the British Embassy, which are running operations to sour the relationship with Russia, to get a war going with Russia. And this is now being exposed. And this completely interfaces politically with the Obama administration holdovers, the key people promoting the ouster of Trump, and so forth and so on. So this whole thing is starting to come together. And they're not just targeting Trump, they're targeting Jeremy Corbyn, the head of the Labour Party in Great Britain, in the United Kingdom, with slanders that he is wittingly or unwittingly a Kremlin stooge. They are also spreading the rumor that the Russians are involved in the Yellow Vests, that they're playing a key role in the Yellow Vest thing in France. So this is a wartime coordinated deployment into the law enforcement and into the intelligence community through what's called the Five Eyes, which is the United States, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. The Five Eyes functions as a coordinated intelligence entity, and until you break that up, you essentially have these other nations tied in with the U.S. and sharing of intelligence, and meaning coordinating intelligence operations, meaning coordinating operations. So this is very, very significant. This whole arrest of Meng Wanzhou, the daughter of the founder of Huawei. Now, another very interesting thing that's developing is the beginning of a rebellion against the whole climate change thing. There was a major conference in Poland on climate change, and the four major nations that refused to sign on, I believe, are the United States and Russia, and I think Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. There may be another country, Romania, Bulgaria. There may be a whole bunch of other countries that refuse to sign on as well. And this is a beginning of a backlash against the fraud of the carbon causing a human production of carbon causing global warming. This is a huge backlash that's beginning. Now, my friends in Canada tell me that there are now 30,000 to 40,000 people signed up on Facebook to join the Yellow Vest movement in Canada to campaign against the same policies that are being implemented in Canada, similar to what is going on in France. So this is spreading to other countries, this Yellow Vest movement, at least to Canada. Now, it's important to note that one of the demands of the Yellow Vest movement is bank separation. So our influence has managed to intersect, our influence in France has managed to intersect that movement with that particular programmatic proposal of bank separation or Glass-Steagall. So that's important. I don't know how the Yellow Vest movement against Trudeau in Canada is going, but at the core is the fact that Canada is implementing on their population the carbon tax. They're also signing on to this refugee agreement that is being discussed in Morocco, where essentially you open up your borders to the refugees in a kind of, because you say, well, because of global warming, these refugees are going to have to come in. We have to do an orderly bringing them in. And the purpose of that is to lie about the cause of the refugees and then begin to undermine the national fabric of the nations where the refugees are accepted. So it's a form of globalization. It's a form of globalization. Destroy the underlying fabric of the nation. So essentially, there's now beginning a movement to protest this in Canada. And that's only getting started. So it's not just in France. It's the same is about to occur in Germany, where the people have had it with the austerity policies and now the massive tax on energy and the fact that Germany has stopped its nuclear power. It's now cutting back. The price of energy has gone up in Germany through the roof. The population is reaching a boiling point in Germany. But there's no immediate expression of this politically in Germany, although there are groups now forming something equivalent to the Yellow Vests in Germany, and our movement has been asked to participate in that process. So here we are on the eve of the total financial disintegration. We have a president who is now going to be coming under ever-increasing attack. And the attack, and the media is trying to communicate, kind of convey that he's in trouble. Mueller has something on him. You know, we have the smoking gun on the Russia thing, and it's all bullshit. So now they're going back to, we're going to get him on illegal contributions to Stormy Daniels. So this is going to go on, and as soon as the Democrats go into office in the House, the committees that are run by Nadler and this other guy, what's his name? Schiff, yeah, I don't want to remember his name. That's the whole point. I don't like the guy. I don't want to remember his name. Adam Schiff. They're going to go all out. And in response to this, 46 congressmen, mostly newly elected Democrats, 46, wrote a letter saying we didn't win our election on the basis of impeaching Trump. So already you have a certain split in the Democratic Party on this whole question. And you also have now a large number of former Republican and former Democratic senators writing a letter, all signing it, saying, "Look, we have some serious problems up ahead. We do not want to have chaos in the presidency. The presidency is going to have to deal with a lot of problems. So you don't want chaos dealing with those problems." So this is where we are, and we're going into the storm. And the population is ripe for a dialogue. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot that's not clear. But when it comes to the growth of the Belt and Road, which is the only economic solution for a lot of countries, you now have Italy joining in, you have Portugal joining in, you have essentially a huge motion towards working for the development of the world based on the Belt and Road. And the question is, can the United States, can Donald Trump, as the President of the United States, be allowed to, or is he capable of bringing the United States into the Belt and Road? Because that's essentially at the crux of the discussions and negotiations between the United States and China right now, between the two teams on trade. It's not just about trade. It's about everything. And there's going to have to be some kind of coming together of Russia, China, India, and the United States to create a new economic financial system, because there's no other way this is going to be dealt with. And these trade discussions between China and the United States have the potential of leading in that direction. So we are gathered here in front of the FBI headquarters. The FBI, according to former Senator Bob Graham, who was the chair of the 9/11 Commission report, the FBI actively suppressed the evidence of Saudi involvement in 9/11, actively lied, not just covered up, but actively lied. And we are at a turning point in our nation because we have to change our nation. We have to change our society if we're going to survive. And part of doing that is to see to it that the 9/11, the 28 pages of the 9/11 Commission report reach the public, which is currently being classified. And if you do that, you will begin to unravel the criminal element that has been at the core of our destruction as a nation, which is the Federal Bureau of Investigation.